Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Daredevil number 172, cover dated July 1981. And the cover by Frank Miller, inked by Klaus Janson, featuring there the looming figure of Kingpin. And here in the foreground we've got Daredevil tackling a number of thugs, and we also have Bullseye launching in at him as well with the cover caption, "The Kingpin, the entire New York mob, and now Bullseye." And this is the culmination of a three-part story that began with issue 170, where Miller brought the Kingpin back to the Marvel Universe and constructed him to be a major threat to New York and an antagonist for Daredevil to go up against for the coming issues and years of the comic. And the design here really interesting, where we have what would normally be rendered in black on the Kingpin, open blue color, and it creates a canvas background for this fight between Daredevil and the thugs and Bullseye. Really, really nicely done, and I love the combination of colors, the purple, the orange, and the blue here as well. Very, very striking cover. Absolutely love it. So let's open this one up to the first page, the splash page. Title of the story there, Gang War, written into the background there by Joe Rosen, who's the letterer. And I love the way that Miller has, in a kind of a Will Eisner fashion, been integrating credits with the art itself and the backgrounds. So here we have the creator credits on the piping here, the water mains piping. Frank Miller, writer, penciler, Klaus Janson, inker, Glynis Wine, colorist, Joe Rosen, letterer, and up here, up top, Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief. And that's important because this is the Jim Shooter era of Marvel Comics, where one of his standing rules or principles was that every issue of every comic might be some readers first. So we get a lot of exposition in the dialogue and in even Daredevil's own thoughts in the opening pages of this issue, which would be to catch a reader up on the previous couple of parts of this storyline. So Daredevil, at the end of the previous issue, was dumped into a water main, bound with his hands and arms bound by Turk and Grotto, and he's coming to now in the water pipe, and thinks humorously to himself, "I wake up in the strangest places." Indeed he does, but he's got a major problem, because as he realizes himself, he's got maybe 4 minutes of air in order to figure out how to get out of this Harry Houdini-like situation he has found himself in. So he thinks to himself, good thing Turk hasn't gotten any better at tying knots. So he gets the knots off, and now he's using his radar sense, but it's dulled in the underwater setting. But he can still detect a junction with another pipe up ahead. It could be a way out, he thinks to himself. And I love the way that Miller has designed the panels here, where you get this sense of the constricted pipe and the danger that Daredevil is in as he crawls forward, holding his breath, thinking maybe he's blacking out. If he weren't blind, he could see that if there was light at the end of the tunnel, but he can't, so he just doesn't know. So really, like, he is going on hope and best guess, and lucky him, he emerges out of the pipe into an underground tunnel, and he realizes that he's among a group of vagabonds who are living here below the city. They're looking for money for food, and he says, "Please stay away, I can't help you, I'm sorry." And we'll see this little scene get picked up by the surprise ending to this issue, the epilogue. So we'll leave that for the moment. Later at Josie's bar in the south end of Manhattan, we have Turk there, and he's looking actually for his tab to be extended with Josie. And I love this sequence here, again very Will Eisner influenced, where Turk is there thinking to himself that he scored big by killing Daredevil, and it's going to improve his reputation as well. And then he sees this hand, this red gloved hand on his shoulder, and he thinks, no, it couldn't be. And he looks around silently and looks up, and of course it is Daredevil. And so he runs for Josie's front window. He's about to jump out again like he did in the previous issue. And Josie here is, "Did you have to, DD? Did you?" Oh geez, he's heading for the window. that's 3 this week. You know how much them things cost? So Daredevil says, us Daredevils come well equipped. We get a little explanation of his billy club and the 30-foot nylon cord, but he grabs Turk with the nylon cord, pulls him up and tells him, "You're going to bring me up to date on what's been going on in the city, Turk." Turk says, sure, my pleasure. So then we get one of these pages that's devoted to giving us the background, if we're a new reader, on the previous 2 issues. And at the end of it, Daredevil basically says to Turk, "You're working for me now." So there we go. And what happens next is that Turk makes his... No, we pick up first of all with Kingpin in his underground headquarters beneath the streets. Look at this vertical panel here. This definitely, when I was looking at this earlier, I was thinking this must have been one of the images that influenced Eastman and Laird with their creation of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They were very much influenced by Daredevil, but just look at this. You could imagine the turtles down in the sewer system beneath the city here. Or you could imagine a turtle coming up out of this manhole. But nice rendering of the city too. And then throughout this issue, we get this device of Miller's where Joe Rosen is producing typewritten text, and it is in the voice of, like, Miller's written the voice of a narrator of a hard-boiled detective fiction novel. Yeah, that's right. This is New York City. But if you're thinking it's all bright lights and big money and all that glittery junk you've seen in the movies, well, you're in for a shock, cause it ain't a playground, it's a battlefield, and there's a war on, and so on and so forth. So he repeats that device throughout the issue with these vertical establishing shots. So we go from the manhole to the skyscraper. See that building over there? Pretty and proud as Mount Olympus, but they aren't gods living in there. Nah, they ain't even men. They're rats in business suits. So really nice work. But back here, the Kingpin is ordering that his henchmen interfere with the drug running operation in the city in order to thwart the mob bosses that have put a hit out on him. And we pick up with them here, and a nice little sequence as well, devised by Miller, with this fly that's buzzing around the darkened office of the mob bosses, and Bullseye, who can hit anything he ever targets, manages to take out the fly with a paperclip. That's really, really nicely done in those 4 panels. And Bullseye is basically fed up with the mob bosses because they're paying him $10 million to take care of the Kingpin, but he wants another 5 to find the Kingpin because the mob bosses have been unable to locate the Kingpin. So then we get this sequence of 3 panels here with Bullseye leaning on criminals and crooks who might be able to give the location of the Kingpin. And I like the detail here of him strangling this guy with the wiring of an aerial, and this guy with the snooker cue, and this guy, he's telling him basically, and that's, look at the spotting of blacks there, the silhouetting. You're on the way to Sin City with something like that, but he's basically saying that he's been having fun all night, but he's losing patience, and he's going to stick this guy if he doesn't give him the exact location of the Kingpin, which he does. And then look at this top-down shot. Speaking of Sin City, that's straight out of Sin City. That is really a kind of a look to 10 years into the future and the kind of work that Miller would be doing on his Sin City series. And you see all these things in Ovo here, you know, like you see them, the seed of certain aspects of his style that he would develop and lean on in the future. Then we've got this great kind of workout sequence with the Kingpin, who Miller has established as a really, like, despite his girth and size, that he's not obese, he's not fat. Everything is muscle, pure muscle with this guy. So he takes out these martial artists that he trains with, and then Turk arrives at this point to tell him that Daredevil's still alive and he's after the files. So these are the files that Kingpin has on the mob bosses, and that the district attorney is interested in getting his hands on in order to put those mob bosses away. So, and also we have this little bit from the previous issue as well with Lynch, his right-hand man. He's suffering from headaches and hearing loss, and that's a plot point that is going to come up a little later in the issue. So, Kingpin gives a briefcase with the files for protection to Turk, and they are ambushed with the lights off by Daredevil, who grabs the briefcase and runs away. And then we have that we have Lynch and Grotto and Turk running into the homeless vagabonds who block them from going after Daredevil. And then we're back with the Kingpin in his underground headquarters, and the guys are apologetic and distraught at the loss of the briefcase, but Kingpin is on top of everything. He's fully planned for everything. And he says, Daredevil has proven himself to be quite canny. However, he should never seek to outwit the Kingpin. He will learn this very soon. So Daredevil brings the briefcase to Lieutenant Manoli, and what's in the briefcase except for just old newspapers. And Manoli asks him, what are you, blind? Because of course nobody knows that Daredevil is indeed blind. Another one of those great establishing shots of New York with the Twin Towers there. And then we've got Bullseye, who has the location now of Kingpin's underground HQ. And they brought this, basically a cannon, to blow away into the room, but it's empty. Kingpin was a step ahead of them, of course, and the room has been rigged to collapse on anyone who goes inside it. Another great establishing shot here of the whole breadth of Manhattan Island, from west to east. That's really well done, and again, shades of Sin City to come. This 2 pages here with the heavy use of blacks for the darkened room that the mob bosses meet in, atop their skyscraper, really well done. And as they are panicking and delaying in terms of dealing with the Kingpin, who arrives except the Kingpin himself in deep silhouette there, and he says, your weakness lies in your numbers. While you formed committees and drafted resolutions, I was free to act with far greater dispatch. The mobs are dissatisfied with your performance, gentlemen. They are ready for my return. So the Kingpin has been planning his return now that his wife is dead, as he sees it. In the previous issue, he's going to return as Kingpin of crime in New York. So remember, Bullseye is present there, and he has been paid 10 million, well, with another 5 million to get the location of the Kingpin to assassinate Kingpin. So he's got his gun trained on the back of Kingpin's head as he sits down at the long table. And he says Kingpin says of Bullseye, by now he must realize that your ineptitude shall inevitably destroy you. It is his choice. He can fire a bullet into my brain, or consider which of us shall be able to guarantee his future employment at premium rates, of course. So the mob bosses beg Bullseye to kill the Kingpin, and Kingpin, supremely confident, says to Bullseye, if you please, my cigarette. And Bullseye lights it. Happy to oblige, boss. You want me to start work right away? I'll give you a group rate on these, on the 3 of them. But Kingpin has a better plan. He has confessions already written out for them to sign, and he's going to give them over to the authorities. So then Lynch enters. Kingpin calls him into the office, and now he's going to get even with Lynch. So he slams Lynch's head down on the table, throws him against the Venetian blinds there, takes off his jacket, and basically reveals that he knows that Lynch exploded the construction site, and by virtue of that, killed Vanessa. He says, if you had stayed in the car, you would have been unaffected by the sonic device. You would not have suffered the headaches you've recently demonstrated. But trust me, Lynch, your torment has only begun. So Lynch pulls a gun on Kingpin, fires at him twice, and Kingpin just grabs his hand, mashes it. The gun falls out of his hand, grabs him around the head, the neck, and just starts pummeling him to the point of not even talking anymore, going absolutely silent, and he kills him. And Lynch did get a couple of shots off, and one of them hit Kingpin in the chest, but obviously because of the massive muscle on his chest, it didn't penetrate, didn't hit him in the heart. Really great storytelling on these couple of pages by Miller. Really great stuff. And that Glynis Oliver trope again of colouring in the background red in order to indicate violence, and especially this panel here as well. So Kingpin calls Bullseye in and says, there's some garbage in my office, clean it up, then get me a doctor. So the Kingpin has established himself once again as top of the criminal food chain in New York. Then we pick up with Daredevil on the streets, and he has a chat with this streetwalker, gives her some money there, and then she lets him know that all her boyfriends, quote unquote, have cancelled with her that night, and so that's an implication that there's her boyfriends, because they're the city's biggest gang leaders, there must be a major conference in the works. So Daredevil makes his way towards the skyscraper that is the headquarters of the mob bosses in New York, and now it's the Kingpin's headquarters. So Kingpin is giving orders here to his new loyal troops, and then the lights go out, and Bullseye realizes it's Daredevil, and he says to Kingpin, I want dibs on him, Kingpin, this kill won't cost you a cent. So Kingpin says here, the generator's in the basement, Bullseye, you'll find him there. So Bullseye goes in, we're going to get a rematch between these two again, after Bullseye getting the better of Daredevil most recently. So everything is in the dark, so we've got these silhouetted figures as Bullseye descends into the basement, switches on the lights, and there's Daredevil waiting for him. I want you to see, Bullseye, I want you to understand exactly what I'm doing here. And here we go. So Daredevil explains that he wishes, in a sense, that he hadn't saved Bullseye back in issue 169 from the approaching train in the subway, that he wanted the train to hit him. I wanted to hear your bones splinter beneath its wheels. I wanted to hear you scream and die, but I pulled you from the tracks. I saved your life and you went free, and you killed again. I've been carrying that around inside me ever since, Bullseye. It hurts a lot. Now I'm going to share that hurt with you. So Bullseye's new gimmick is throwing star shuriken. So he throws 4 of them there at Daredevil. Daredevil catches them all with his billy club. Great DeLuca effect here. And then he flings the billy club at Bullseye, takes his handgun out of his hand and slams him up against the wall. So now we get this classic Miller horizontal panel layout for the fight scene here between Daredevil and Bullseye. And Bullseye gets his hand on Daredevil's billy club and uses it against him, and is absolutely delighted at the billy club as a weapon. The balance is extraordinary. He says it's a faultless weapon, only proper that I use it to kill you. And then the irony is Daredevil uses Bullseye's handgun to shoot the billy club out of his hand. And then we're back to the physical fight. Daredevil wants a fight, hand to hand, no weapons. So that's what we get here on this page. Just really, really excellent work. And what I like is the device, Miller's device here. We've got these horizontal panels like before, but the action is so frenetic that he's putting in more than one shot of the characters in the horizontal panels, like here and here, like here and here, and that really gives you a sense of the frenzy of the fight between the two. And here Bullseye gets the better of Daredevil. He's choking him out, but Daredevil says, I'm taking you with me. So he seems to be getting the better of Bullseye here. Great storytelling with these slender vertical panels, and then we see this immense silhouette come into the basement, and who could that be except, of course, Kingpin. And Kingpin has come with his men, and they all have their weapons trained on Daredevil, And Kingpin says, and look at the silhouetting on Kingpin here. He says to Daredevil, "Bullseye's still breathing. You may finish him." "No, I didn't think you would." And here is Kingpin putting the final part of his master plan into action. "So, Daredevil, you've proven yourself an obstacle to me. I would have you shot, but for the fact that I still have use for you. These are my files, the state's evidence you've so desperately sought. They're yours to deliver to District Attorney Tower. Minutes after he receives them, he will issue warrants to arrest the entire upper echelon of the East Coast underworld. Soon they will be imprisoned, and I shall replace them with my men. You shall eliminate my competition for me." Now, why would Daredevil go ahead with that? So, Kingpin's thought out all the angles. "I know what you're thinking, Daredevil. You're planning some desperate, futile attack. You seek to bring me in as well. You're a very passionate man." This is really interesting stuff here from Miller. "You're a very passionate man, but it's not your passion that I now address. It's your intellect. Consider your position. You've Bullseye. I'll throw him in as a courtesy, and I shall be left with a shattered organization to rebuild for a time. Your side will be that much stronger. Consider the greater good to society, and you shall see that you really have no choice after all." And I like the storytelling here with Kingpin in the center of these two panels. Daredevil listening, saying nothing. Here silhouetted out with the rim lighting as well. Really nicely done. And Kingpin here in deep silhouette. And Daredevil walks away with the briefcase and with Bullseye over his shoulder. You win, Kingpin, this time. So, what a climax to the Kingpin's return to New York and his getting to the top of the criminal ladder once again. Really, really well done. 3-part story, 170, 171, and 172 by Miller. And then we get this epilogue, unexpected. So we're back at that construction site that exploded in the previous issue because of Lynch's bomb, and we see that Vanessa lives. She's alive in the rubble, and she's coughing there. Once she was a finely bred lady of culture. Once she was wife and lover to the man called the Kingpin, and she soothed his furious nature. But the eyes that now stare numbly, bleakly at the darkness around her are eyes empty of love or thought. There is nothing left of her now, nothing but a single need. "Hungry," she says. "Food, please, food. Money for food." So Vanessa's alive, but amnesiac, and reduced to the state of a vagabond beneath the streets of the city, while the Kingpin has ascended to the top of the criminal tree, atop that skyscraper. Very interesting symbolism there. What humanized the Kingpin now is lost in the sewers of New York City, unbeknownst to him. Excellent, excellent, excellent issue by young Frank Miller. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Daredevil 172. If you did, please like the video on YouTube. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.